The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. Bringing you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports. You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels.
Listen, yes, I've said this multiple times this week, as you can imagine, but Lane Kiffin admitted that they practice on the Georgia Bulldogs during the bye week 2 days. Just straight up. Yeah, before they practiced for Georgia on the bye week. Mm-hmm. So I view that coach speak like U.S. military technology. You only know about 20% of what's actually out there.
Sure.
So if he's talking about 2 days, they probably did it 5. And that explains a lot of what they put in. If you looked at the offense, we had Jake Crane from Crane & Company on my podcast early in the week. And he's like, this is the most vanilla offense that Lane Kiffin has ever put out there. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to flush it, move on. They're obviously looking for the Georgia Bulldogs because I think Lane knows that after what happened in Oxford a year ago, he is going to get Georgia's best. And I am thankful as an Ole Miss fan that this game is not at night. If this game was at night, that's probably worth 14 points in this ball game because of Kirby being really jacked up and all of that. I think in the daytime, better shot. Georgia is going to be good because they are still one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the Southeastern Conference and one of the best teams in America. So I am under no illusion that Ole Miss is just going to walk in and win that game at all. But Ole Miss is talented enough to where if they get just a couple of breaks, they don't have to play well, but they do need some help, a little bit of help. And if they get that help, which Georgia has been giving to teams in the first half of games, they've
tried.
Yeah. If Ole Miss gets that help, instead of a 10-0 game like you saw at Auburn, it could be 21-0 because the Ole Miss offense can do some of the stuff that Tennessee did with the deep passes, but they can also run the ball and do some of the stuff that Auburn was effective with in that game in the first half. Now, I am under no illusions. Again, this is Kirby Smart we're dealing with. It's going to get taken care of, and he's amped up for this game. But I think Daquan Wright and Caden Lee in the middle of the field are going to be important in this game. In pass coverage, Georgia's linebackers, when they're coming up and playing the run, they're the best in college football, but they can be taken advantage of whenever they're matched up one-on-one with a slot receiver like Caden Lee, just like Ole Miss did a year ago.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to try to do that, but with Trinidad Chambliss being 5'10", 5'11", you're going to see those tall trees raise their hands up to where the middle of the field might get taken away. But I think Daquan Wright and Caden Lee are the 2 players to watch in this football game.
Yeah, what you saw in the second half against Jackson Arnold, who we know is a carbon copy of Trinidad Chambliss.
Exactly the same.
What you saw in the second half was a lot of spy, sometimes even double spy, where you had multiple linebackers watching. We know Auburn had 15 total yards of offense in the second half. Late in the fourth quarter, they had negative 5 yards rushing in the second half. It worked really well. Obviously, 130 yards rushing in the first half for Auburn. They got those mistakes cleaned up. I do think you're going to see some spy from guys like C.J. Allen because obviously you gotta be wary. You can't just be wary of the underneath passing game. You get your eyes moving side to side in some of these formations and route combinations that Lane likes to run, and all of a sudden that's where the quarterback's going to hit you. Guys are going to have to stay in their rush lanes. Linebackers are going to have to be home. The safeties are probably going to have to come down and help with some of that underneath stuff so that the linebackers can be freed up to keep their eye on the quarterback. I'm curious on your end, and so I do agree. I think C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Justin Williams, the true sophomore, Chris Cole, those guys are going to have a big role in the outcome of this game defensively. People look at the secondary and say the secondary's had issues this year. It's really the pass rush that's had issues this year. And it's hard to rush a guy like Chambliss anyway, because he's so elusive and he's so quick and they do so many design runs. And so you can't just pin your ears back and come after him. And so it's tough to get a pass rush anyway. The secondary has been okay. I think the linebackers are going to be really important in this game. I'm curious from your perspective, from an Ole Miss side, about that Ole Miss defensive front. Georgia's shown as a huge upgrade from last year's team, where Georgia finished 14th in the SEC in rushing, outside the top 100 nationally in rushing. I'm talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, finished outside the top 100 nationally in rushing last year. They've increased their rushing yards per game output by over 90 yards, Stephen, per game this year. The really emphasis on running football. Chauncey Bowens, Nate Frazier have been really good out of the backfield. We know Ole Miss lost a ton on that defensive front from last year.
All of them.
All of it. And so, but now it's not last year anymore. We're 6 games in. And so from your perspective, how's that group going to stack up against a banged up offensive line, but an offensive line that's been creating a lot of holes in the run game? 275 on the ground against Alabama in the last, in the last marquee home game that Georgia had. How's that Ole Miss defensive front going to hold up?
Well, the good news for Ole Miss fans is their 2 pups, no pun intended, are starting to grow up. With Kamarion Franklin and William Eccles, 2 5-star players that are true sophomores that are starting this year. Cam Franklin had a sack and a half against Washington State. He was one of the few players that actually played pretty well. William Eccles is back-to-back dominant sacks of getting pass rush as well. And then Xavier Harris, he's 350 pounds. You know about Xavier Harris. He's been at Ole Miss, it feels like 10 years. So it depends on if Pete Golding, and I genuinely believe he's been playing odd fronts this year because he didn't have to worry about the running game, the physicality of it. LSU, they didn't stick with it. Tulane, even Washington State, you didn't have to worry about that. You could rush 3 and drop 8 and be very vanilla on the back end. You're not going to be able to do that against Georgia because Georgia and Mike Bola will absolutely run you out of an 8-man coverage. So I'm expecting some even fronts, maybe even some odd 5-man fronts for the Ole Miss Rebels, where they're going with 2 linemen, Prince Will Amonmi Ellen, I should say.
There it is. Yeah,
there
easy for you to say.
Yes. Lining up, playing a little bit of linebacker, stand-up defensive end, but they're trying to get Gunnar Stockton into 2nd and 8. They're trying to avoid the 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, first down, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, first down. Because if that happens, you're cooked. Yeah. So they need to figure out a way to stop the running game and force 2nd and 3rd down and long yardage. And if they can do that, then they can NASCAR package it a little bit, and they can get after Gunnar Stockton because they have played the cream of the cream of rushing quarterbacks in the SEC. That is something that they have seen this year. So I think they'll be able to handle Gunnar Stockton. He's a little bit different, but he's not Taylon Green as far as somebody that can just outrun you. I'm curious to see what it looks like. I'm more concerned, honestly, about the running backs. I'm not the linebackers and against the Georgia running backs. I think you're going to see some screens in this game. I think Bobo's going to get into his bag a little bit. I think Bell's going to be running some end arounds. They're going to mess with the eyes of the linebackers in order to get those short yardage games. And the linebackers that Ole Miss has, TJ Daugherty, Jaden Yates, Taj Chambers, those guys, this is going to be two of the three's biggest game that they've ever played in front of. And Jaden, I guess Jaden Yates played at Ohio Stadium, so that probably counts a little bit towards that. But in this game, this is going to be huge. College game day, the whole 9 yards. There's a freak out factor with this defense. And if they can avoid the bust, because Ole Miss's problem in run defense, when you look at the stats, it's like, man, they're giving up 150 yards a game. That doesn't tell the whole story. For 95% of the game, they're giving up 2 and 3 yards per carry, but they give up 2 or 3 explosive plays a game that is skewing that. If they cannot give up explosives against the Georgia Bulldogs, they're going to be fine. And if you stop Georgia's running game, Ole Miss is going to win this game. But the problem is stopping Georgia's running game. Yeah. If you score more points than the other team, you're going to win almost every time. Yeah. You just
got to score more points than the other team. You just got to do
it. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. The last time Ole Miss won it in Athens was 1996. Now they don't play every year, but it's been a minute.
Yeah,
it's been a minute. And that game, by the way, the Ole Miss collective, Walker Jones, ran down Hines Ward in that game on a long pass. Yes, that game happened.
Some legends. Yeah, I mean, you're really coming off of, the more recent history, more interesting to me. You're coming off of a really big win for Lane and the program last year, in Oxford, to get that win against Kirby, to kind of validate proof of concept. Now, of course, they faltered down the stretch and, didn't end the season the way that they wanted to, but that it was a big win for Lane and company last year. And then you look back 2 years ago, the last time Lane Kiffin was in Athens, and, it was a bloodbath.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was an absolute, it was an absolute show. And so I'm not expecting really either type of performance. I mean, Ole Miss kind of dominated the game last year, and Georgia obviously dominated the game 2 years ago. I don't think this Georgia team, the next time they dominate somebody will be the first time they dominated somebody. So I'm not looking for it. At this point, you couldn't look for it. At this point, if you don't bet the Ole Miss first quarter line on FanDuel, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you haven't been watching a Georgia football game all year. Like, if you're not going to bet that line, I don't know what to. But then Georgia in the second half, 0 points to Alabama, 17 fewer points to Tennessee in the second half and overtime than they allowed in the first half. 0 points to Auburn in the second half, and 0 points other than a garbage time touchdown against the fourth stringers against Kentucky in the second half. The Georgia defense in the second half just figures it out. We know Kirby's the best in the game, but Lane's right there with him on the offensive side of the ball. One of the best in the game in terms of calling a game. It's what makes a matchup like this so fun, because it's not only the players going against each other, it's the offensive and defensive minds. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it should be a whole lot of fun. I've joked on my show this week that you almost need 2 game plans for this game. You need a first half game plan, and then when they adjust to that, you break out the second game plan.
Yeah.
That's probably the way that you attack this Georgia team, because they are so good at adjusting at halftime. They are really good.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
It's that time again, everybody. It's time to duke it out. Utes and Cougar style. It's the Holy War.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is that time. The Holy War is here. Saturday night, it all goes down. We have the 23rd ranked Utah Utes as a slight favorite, according to our friends over at FanDuel, over the 15th ranked BYU Cougars. I want to start right now and say, how in the world did you think that we were going to get 40% Utah fans in Lavelle Edwards Stadium?
Well, I'm just thinking at the start of this thing, you're like, make sure you guys go into our mentions and give us crap for our takes. I'm like, I really need help with that this week, Jay.
I'm adding fuel to the fire here. Let's go.
I was totally fired up. It came 18 minutes into the crossover with Drake, and I was just on a tangent. And I was like, I don't know, be 70-30. You know, it's a short drive. And then, I know. Then once I sat down and thought about it after I saw the clips, I laughed. I was like, that was ridiculous. That was this is the third show now I've had to walk that one back, and I'm willing to admit when I was wrong. I was really wrong about that one, even though I do think there will be scattered red in the crowd.
Okay, there will be red in the crowd. Yeah. But JT, if it's more than 15% of the crowd, that's a big number.
I agree. Once you take a step back, once you take a step back from the emotions of the show, you're like, Oh yeah, I really did say that, didn't I? Oh, that was
See,
yeah.
see,
That's
here's
a
the
tough
thing.
one.
Like 60-40, that could happen if, like, we played like Texas and Oklahoma, where we played in a neutral site, and they legitimately split it down the middle. And obviously, one side gets 50%, the other side gets 50%. That could obviously fluctuate that number. But when BYU sells 44,000+ season tickets, yeah, you're never getting 60-40.
Yeah, it's a little problematic. That's why I shouldn't do math. I should leave the math to the people in Vegas, which is why I found it very interesting that Utah is actually favored in this game, Jake, because the last time a top 15 team at home was not favored in their matchup versus a lower ranked team was 2 years ago. So it's been a while since this has been this case. Vegas seems to like the Utes and maybe think the Cougars are a tad overrated. I tend to agree.
JT, BYU is 17-2 in their last 19 games going back to last season. I would venture to say the majority, more than half of those games, and we're talking, I will never forget the fact that BYU went to UCF last year. UCF was sub 500 on the season, and BYU was somehow an underdog, according to FanDuel and other sports books out there. So, yeah, they can put Utah in as a favorite, but BYU, this is par for the course. They are totally cool with the disrespect tag.
The only thing I'll say on last year, Jake, is you yourself projected BYU at what, 4 wins?
No, I said 6 and 6. I said bowl eligible.
So everyone was caught off guard by BYU last year is the only thing I'll say. This year, people aren't caught as off guard, and we knew this in the schedule even coming in this year. You said yourself you thought they should be 6-0 going into this game, barring something catastrophic.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. BYU's played the soft portion of their schedule. This 6-game stretch they're in, and it started last week against Arizona, because I think the Wildcats have proven to be pretty darn good this season so far. But this 6-game stretch that BYU's in right now, JT, Utah's the second of the 6. This 6-game stretch is going to define BYU season for better or worse, because if they can rise up and play the type of opponents they're going to play in this stretch and win the majority of them, yeah, that team's going to be capable of contending for Big 12 glory. But if they fall flat on their face, yeah, well, the paper tiger moniker and what you're talking about with the sports books, thinking they may know something about BYU that we don't know, that also is very, very valid.
It is, and everything's up for grabs for Utah here too. If you lose this game and you're Utah, BYU can lose this game and in a way still control their own destiny. It's tough because of what another stratosphere tech looks like right now. Utah, there's no way they lose this game and control their own destiny. You need help then.
And that's the thing about this, JT, because BYU, they can lose to Utah and still find their way to Arlington relatively easily. Yeah. Whereas for Utah, if you lose the tiebreaker to Texas Tech and you have the tiebreaker against BYU, you don't have the tiebreaker against BYU.
Yeah, we will. After this weekend, we will.
Okay, fair. Okay. Hold on. We're not getting to predictions yet, sir. But the point is, yeah, if you don't have the tiebreaker against either one of the other 2 big teams, and I know Cincinnati's also in the mix right now, that would be a death knell for your chances of ending up in Arlington, it looks like.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a chance, as I think you are willing to say too, right? Like there's a world where BYU beats Utah, and because of what a gauntlet of a schedule they still have, they go on to lose another 3 games in that schedule. And then if you're Utah and you win out, so you're not done if you're Utah, but what did I just say? BYU has to lose first. So that's where, if you're Utah, this is a must-win game, and it being a rivalry game is what makes this one so special and spectacular on Saturday.
So, and the thing about this, I argued this earlier this week on the podcast, JT, and I want your thought on this because I consider this to be the biggest ever in rivalry history, considering the stakes. The winner of this game does have that inside track, it appears, to go to Arlington and face off what I think will be Texas Tech, because Tech looks like they are light years ahead of everybody in the league right now. So this game, it's in some ways a Big 12 title game eliminator, and that raises the stakes significantly, in addition to the fact that it's the first time we've got ranked opponents in this matchup for the first time since 2009, and also the fact that they're in the Big 12. This is for a whole lot more marbles than we've ever had before.
Well, I sometimes listen to Locked On Cougars because I think that Jake Hatch is a pretty smart guy. So
you do what?
I sometimes listen to Locked On Cougars because I think that Jake Hatch, man, he knows a little something. Just like I learned when me and Jake Hatch about 5 years ago were calling Parker Kingston's final high school football game. It's crazy to go on and watch the success Parker and a couple of these other guys. We called Glasgow that year too, I think, have been gone on and been able to have. But yeah, this BYU team, this Utah team colliding, it's an epic matchup. And honestly, Jake, for the reasons you laid on your show, the fact the first time in 16 years, the fact they both look like contenders, not just the bragging rights that come with winning this game, but the conference championship implications of having the tiebreaker. I got to believe, I think this is the biggest one we've had in years. And last year's was epic, obviously, the way it ended and everything. This one, the sequel, with even more crossover on both sides too, with transfers, it feels like the sequel to last year's Big 12 debut of the Holy War rivalry is going to exceed the hype.
Okay, real quick, JT. On that front, speaking of, this could be an elimination type game. What is the biggest, I guess, motivating factor you think for Utah in this? Is it the fact that it could be Kyle Whittingham's final game at the helm of Utah in a rivalry game, or is it more for the fact that you need to avoid losing 3 straight to BYU, especially considering the Cougars have a freshman quarterback that could set them up for success in the foreseeable future in said rivalry?
I think it's the 3 straight thing, especially for recruiting implications, because you've already lost to them 2 times in a row now. And at the time you were able to overcome, I feel like in recruiting, the 21 loss because you went on to win Pac-12 titles, right? Like you became for that stretch, you were a better program than BYU, like just you're winning conference titles. Last year, BYU was the better program. They had more success than Utah. And now this feels like a game where it's very much up for grabs. If whoever wins this game, obviously BYU will stay above Utah. Utah will leapfrog BYU. And this one just has so many implications. It's absolutely massive. I feel like at this present moment, it dwarfs the long-term implications, dwarf Kyle Whittingham's potential final Holy War rivalry game.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I want to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Are the Florida Gators on upset alert against Mississippi State?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators.
We're still at Wednesday, so we're a little ways out, but how are you feeling?
I'm so torn. I want Florida to win. I want to make that clear. I'm not doing the whole if you lose, then you get more it's more likely you fire Billy. I don't care. I wanted them to beat USF, and they lost that game too. So it doesn't matter if I want them to win or not. But I'm torn because so much of this comes down to me not trusting Billy, not trusting this offense. But it's homecoming for Florida. They're still at the Swamp. It's still tough to win.
Right.
I'm torn on it because I think Mississippi State is a much better team than I think most people think of. Like a lot of people go, oh yeah, it's Mississippi State, destroy them. And it's like, okay, well, this is a Mississippi State team that's gone down to the wire a few times, beat Arizona State. One thing I keep coming back to is Jeff Lebby's yet to win an SEC game. And I feel like that's such a stupid thought to have, but I'm like, look, Billy struggles on the road. He's 0-14 against ranked teams on the road. Some things, it's just it's hard to get that first one.
Yeah.
But I feel like Billy's just handing them out at this point. So I feel like I feel like me bringing up that Jeff Lebby hasn't won an SEC game yet is like, oh, that's the most Florida thing ever he's about to do it.
Yeah, and the one thing going for y'all big time, though, is it's at home, and that's Mississippi State's struggle, not just in SEC games, but on the road as well. We saw with Texas A&M just kind of pulled away in the second half. Injury situation for both teams. Jeff Lebby talked about Fluff Bothwell, who's obviously their top running back and makes the whole run game go. Now, Booth is really good as well, but Bothwell is the one that makes it go. But he said in his press conference that he's doubtful. He said for him, it's going to be a little bit, a bit better every single day. He's incredibly encouraged with how things have gone up until this point, but he's done everything possible he can to be ready to play. So we'll wait and see on that. So I guess he kind of left it open for him to play, but then said he's doubtful as well. I think if he doesn't play, I don't really see much of a chance, even though, like I said, Booth is really good, and I think they'll do creative things with him because he's a different type of running back than Bothwell. It's just Bothwell has been so good, and you can see the clear difference when they had him versus Tennessee and Texas A&M early in that game versus when he's not on the field.
Yeah, Bothwell, first off, hell of a name. Was really hoping to get to say that a bunch this week. Mm-hmm. But I'm also just interested because I feel like last year when Florida and Mississippi State played, I feel like a lot of Florida fans went into that just like, oh yeah, they're going to annihilate them. And right. Sure, the score wasn't very close, but I feel like for a good bit of that game, Mississippi State was playing better than the score indicated. And I hate using that logic. But I feel like Jeff Lebby, and I've said this 1,000 times in my show. Like, I'm not a Jeff Lebby fan at all. Don't like him. But he's done a good job. He's done a good job at Mississippi State. He's building them back up. I'm interested to see how he wants to take what Texas A&M did and try to implement that some of that against Florida. I don't think that Mississippi State's offensive line is not going to come out and punch people in the mouth the way Texas A&M's offensive line is. I don't think any team is really going to come out and do that except maybe Miami. But there were, against Texas and Texas A&M, deep shots available, especially built off of the run game. And so I look at Jeff Lebby just trying to take those shots and trying to attack there against a Florida defense that D-line's been banged up, is going to be banged up. Like, we're not really expecting a lot of people to come back at this point. A lot of the names that are listed as out last week, still going to be out. Like Caleb Banks, not coming back, I think, at all this year, to be honest. But I think that a lot of it's also weird because Florida is they're going to have 1,000 names on that list. That just know that, expect that if you're a Mississippi State fan and you look at that availability report, Florida's going to have 1,000 names on that list. Some of them are guys that we've known have been out for the year. Some of them are going to pop up out of nowhere. But yeah, I think for Florida, just a lot of the injuries have happened already. Like, guys aren't really getting banged up right now, or at least in game. But it's just going to be tough. I've never, I think, been more annoyed at a team right now because I think this is an incredibly talented team. But for some reason, just they do the Breece Hall quote from a couple weeks ago with the Jets running back, where he's like, like, other teams shoot themselves in the foot, we shoot ourselves in the head. Like, that's what Florida's been doing lately. And honestly, just terrifies me that they're going to do that again. If they might do that, like, it could be ugly.
Yeah, that's kind of my biggest question mark, is what Florida offense shows up and what Mississippi State defense shows up, because the Florida offense against Texas was really, really good. And part of that was Wilson just kind of went Super Saiyan over there on them. I mean, he was incredible in that game. And then Mississippi State, their defense kind of has been the surprise for me because they've been much improved. They were like 130th last year. And last time I looked, they were like top 50 this year, or top 60, I think it was. And they were really good in the first 3 quarters against A&M, but the fourth quarter, you could tell they were just worn out, and the game started to get away from them at that point. They've had some injuries. We'll see what Isaac Smith is listed because he's been out. But yeah, I'm curious what kind of Mississippi State defense shows up, because it's been really good so far.
Yeah, Bulldogs barking, man. They're ready for this game. But for Florida, I mean, I'll be interested. I think the teams should play Florida as aggressively as possible, and so I think that you'll see a Mississippi State defense that probably comes out more aggressive than usual, because, and I've been saying this for a long while, like, Florida has not given you a reason to respect their passing game. And so I could see defenses just saying, hey, we're going to come up and line up. And look, some teams aren't going to have just the personnel to do that. I don't know if Mississippi State's going to have it, because, I mean, again, like you mentioned, like Dallas Wilson, quiet game against Texas A&M, but that wasn't because he wasn't good enough. That was because there was a ton of pressure in the backfield. And so I'm very interested to see the approach. But if I'm a DC at any point, I'm saying I'm not respecting the passing game at all. I'm going to pin my ears back and get after Lagway. Just try to stop the run early, pin my ears back, get after Lagway. And if he doesn't react and he doesn't make you pay for it, I'm going to keep doing it. And so far, that's been the plan for a lot of teams. And it's been working, and that's incredibly embarrassing that that's been working. Florida hasn't made him pay yet.
Yeah, and we can kind of segue into the quarterbacks, because I was high on Lagway going into this year, as I think everyone was. I mean, the talent was there. I still think he's probably more injured than people are letting on, especially with that shoulder injury he had in the offseason where he wasn't throwing at some points. I still think that's probably the biggest issue. At least that's, as a supporter of his, I hope that's the biggest issue of his. Part of it is not the creativity of the offense. Napier, I don't think, has done a great job either, putting him in a position to be successful. But it's going to be a totally weird quarterback matchup this week. Because Shapen is that veteran guy that he's just a solid college quarterback. He's probably not going to be a starter in the NFL. He's not that kind of guy, but he's just a solid college quarterback. He's that perfect kind of bridge to the future, who they think it is, in Camario Taylor. And but Lagway is the future. Like, he is the present, he's the future, he's everything for Florida. So it's just a completely different quarterback matchup. And Lagway is a guy that is so talented that could be and really should be a first-round pick when it's all said and done, if he lives up to it.
Yeah, I think that the offseason injuries just destroyed Lagway's development for a little bit. And by destroyed, I don't mean beyond reparation, but really stunted his development a bit because he was always the guy. And we've had these conversations before where people talk about, oh, he threw 5 picks against LSU. Why didn't you take him out? Personally, no QB of mine, if I were a coach, is ever going to throw 5 picks because I'm taking him out before that 5th one. Like there's no way I'm going to let a QB do that. But also DJ Lagway is someone who needs reps. Like that's what he's lacked. That's always been the thing he's lacked is reps. And so he needs those reps. So keeping him in the game was the decision there. They know he needs reps to get better. He hasn't been available. The ankle, foot, calf issue pops up every single game. Against Texas, it popped up on the first drive. He looked good. He rolled out, threw the ball away, hopping on one foot, throwing the ball out of bounds. If DJ Lagway gets time, he's going to be, I think, pretty solid. I still believe that, yeah, if he bounces back from this year and takes a step next year, wherever that may be, depending on a coach, maybe, I think that he's still going to be a high draft pick if he just reins things back and just settles in again. Blake Shapen is someone that I've been very open about on the show. We talked about in the SEC preview before the year. I like Blake Shapen. I liked him at Baylor. I think I have a soft spot for Baylor guys. That's fine. But Blake Shapen is someone that I liked coming over. I was disappointed that last year he didn't make it through the Florida game. But even this year, when Mississippi State's line was set at, I'm pretty sure it was 4.5. I was taking the over because I'm like, look, they get Blake Shapen back, and I think he's a guy that not a Heisman, never going to be that, never going to be an early round draft pick, but he, like you mentioned, he's a good college quarterback. Like he could just make some plays happen, keep the offense on schedule, on task, and especially when you're a team that is going to be an underdog in most of their games, like Mississippi State, like that's the perfect guy to have because those underdogs, they're not trying to get the explosive, or they're trying to, but they're not going to get the explosive plays very frequently. Like they got to march down and go make it happen. And I think he's the guy that can do that. He gets the ball to the playmakers when they need it. Obviously needs to improve still, but I mean, look, he uses his legs, I think in smart instances, usually not a big killer there on the ground. You know, Florida fans, you won't have to worry about Blake Shapen pulling a Marcel Reed or Arch Manning on you with the big gains. But I do think that Blake Shapen brings enough to the table to keep you on schedule, on task, and just make you threatening at that point. And that's really that's his job. And so I don't love him as a Heisman. I wouldn't want him over DJ Lagway, but he's a quality player. And I think that if DJ Lagway isn't the quality that we've seen him be, Blake Shapen has the ability to make this more of a battle, again, just by keeping the offense on schedule.